The night was ink black, and the air was thick with a suffocating fog that clung to everything like a ghostly shroud. John's journey along the lonely road was already filled with a sense of foreboding, but he pressed on, the rhythmic hum of his car's engine the only solace against the oppressive darkness. As he ventured deeper into the dense, looming forest, the fog grew thicker, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance and beckon on the periphery of his vision. The road ahead twisted and turned, a serpentine path that led him further into the heart of the wilderness. John's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his knuckles turning white as he realized he was far from civilization. A realization that sent a chill down his spine. Just when the isolation seemed unbearable, a faint silhouette emerged from the gloom. A figure, barely discernible through the fog, stood at the road's edge. Panic surged within him, and his foot involuntarily pressed the brakes. The car came to a reluctant halt, the headlights revealing a young woman. She was clad in a tattered and blood-soaked white gown that clung to her frail form. Her long, disheveled hair obscured her face, and her bare feet were caked in mud. She waved frantically for help, her hand appearing and disappearing like a specter in the fog. John's heart pounded, and fear clawed at his throat. He contemplated speeding away, fleeing from this surreal nightmare, but his conscience, fueled by his upbringing, compelled him to open the passenger door. The woman moved with an unnatural grace, her bare feet never quite touching the ground. She climbed into the back seat, leaving a trail of icy dampness in her wake. Her voice was a soft, trembling whisper as she implored him for a ride to the nearest hospital. He hesitated, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror, and that's when he saw it, the reflection that chilled him to his core. There in the dimly lit car, the woman had no reflection. Her eyes were pools of absolute darkness, devoid of life, and her skin was as pale as the moon. John's breath caught in his throat, and terror surged through his veins. He was no longer alone with a hitchhiker. He was in the presence of something unholy. Gathering his wits, he slammed his foot on the gas pedal, the tires screeching as the car lurched forward. But as the vehicle sped away, the woman's laughter, cold and malevolent, filled the cabin, echoing in John's mind long after she had vanished into thin air. Her sinister presence left behind only a chilling puddle of blood-soaked water on the back seat, as if mocking his escape. Legend has it that on foggy nights like that one, the phantom hitchhiker still haunts the forest road, luring unsuspecting travelers to their doom. Her twisted laughter reverberating through the fog, a sinister echo of a lost soul's torment. Sarah's night journey through the desolate countryside had taken an unexpected turn. Her gas gauge had dipped precariously close to empty, and the nearest town was miles away. Panic gnawed at her insides as she prayed for a gas station to materialize from the inky blackness. Just when despair threatened to engulf her, a faint glimmer pierced the darkness ahead. It was the dimly lit sign of a gas station, a relic from another era. The rusty, creaking sign squeaked ominously in the wind, its neon lights flickering like ghostly fireflies. As she pulled into the gravel lot, a chill ran down her spine. The gas station was like a snapshot from the past, frozen in time. It had an eerie aura, as if it were a place that the world had forgotten. The worn-out fuel pumps looked as though they hadn't dispensed gasoline in decades. Sarah's car came to a stop with a soft crunch of gravel under its tires. Inside, a sense of déjà vu washed over her. The place seemed eerily familiar, as if she'd visited it in a recurring dream. The lone attendant, an elderly man with hollow eyes and a pallid complexion, didn't acknowledge her presence. He simply stood behind the counter, his gaze fixed on some distant point only he could see. Sarah couldn't help but feel an inexplicable dread as she handed the attendant her credit card, and he processed the transaction without uttering a word. As she moved to pump gas, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. A heavy silence settled in, broken only by the distant howl of the wind. As the nozzle clicked into place, filling her tank with gasoline, Sarah's eyes darted around the station. It was then that she noticed something unsettling. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast strange, shifting shadows on the walls. In those shadows, she glimpsed fleeting shapes and figures that seemed to slither and writhe, like phantoms trapped in an endless dance. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from behind her, and Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. She spun around to find a group of ghostly figures emerging from the shadows. Their skin was pallid, their eyes vacant, and their clothes tattered and torn. They moved with a slow, deliberate grace, like mournful specters summoned from the depths of despair. Terrified, Sarah stumbled backward, dropping the gas nozzle. The ghostly figures advanced, their outstretched hands reaching for her. Their voices, like a chorus of the damned, filled the air with haunting melodies that sent shivers down her spine. The chilling refrain seemed to say, stay with us forever." Panic surged through Sarah's veins, and she turned and bolted for her car. But when she looked in the rearview mirror, her heart stopped. The gas station and its spectral inhabitants had vanished without a trace. In their place, there was only an empty field, bathed in the cold, silvery light of the moon. Sarah sped away from that accursed place, her heart racing and her mind filled with questions that had no answers. She had glimpsed the otherworldly, and the experience would haunt her nightmares for the rest of her life. Legend has it that the Vanishing gas station appears to travelers in their hour of need, but those who stop are never seen again, forever trapped in the eerie liminal space between the living and the dead, where the spirits of the lost and forgotten roam. The night was ominous, and a spectral silence hung over the desolate highway, known far and wide as the Haunted Highway. Tom and his friends, daring and adventurous, had decided to venture onto this infamous road. Its macabre reputation was born from a litany of terrifying tales, accidents that defied explanation, ghostly apparitions that beckoned to travelers, and strange disappearances that had never been solved. The moon, obscured by thick, swirling clouds, offered only fleeting glimpses of the winding asphalt. The world beyond the car's headlight was a swirling abyss of inky darkness. Despite the unease that clung to them, the group was determined to face the highway's horrors head-on. As they drove deeper into the heart of the haunted highway, the forest on either side seemed to grow denser, swallowing them in a sea of gnarled trees and eerie shadows. The atmosphere inside the car grew heavy, each breath tinged with trepidation. The road ahead twisted and turned like a serpent, and it was as if the very trees themselves were conspiring to keep them captive in this nightmarish realm. Suddenly, Tom's headlights illuminated an old, rusted school bus, its paint peeling and windows shattered. It stood like a ghost from the past, abandoned and decaying on the roadside. It was an unsettling sight, but the group was drawn to it, as if an invisible force were compelling them to investigate. Reluctantly, they left the safety of their car and approached the forsaken vehicle. The creaking of the bus's doors seemed to echo through the night, and they entered, their footsteps echoing eerily within the hollow chamber. Inside, they found a scene frozen in time. A jumble of tattered backpacks, children's toys, and dusty textbooks strewn about as if the passengers had fled in a hurry. As they explored further, an unsettling presence settled upon them. The air grew colder, and a spectral mist enveloped the bus, obscuring their vision. It was then that they heard it, the unmistakable laughter of children, young and carefree, but somehow laced with an eerie quality that sent shivers down their spines. The group exchanged anxious glances, their hearts pounding, as they tried to locate the source of the laughter. It seemed to emanate from all around them, a ghostly chorus that filled the air and seemed to seep into their very souls. The laughter grew louder and more menacing, a haunting cacophony that threatened to drown out their thoughts. Terrified and disoriented, Tom and his friends fled back to their car, their footsteps echoing through the foggy darkness. But as they reached the vehicle, they were met with a horrifying sight. The haunted highway stretched endlessly before them, its eerie twists and turns winding off into infinity. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped in this nightmarish loop, condemned to traverse the cursed highway for all eternity. The ghostly children's voices grew closer, their laughter now a chilling, maniacal cacophony. The car's engine sputtered and died, leaving them stranded in the heart of their worst nightmares. Just as the ghostly children were about to reach them, the car roared back to life, its headlights piercing the fog. Tom slammed his foot on the gas pedal, and they sped away, leaving haunting laughter behind. The highway seemed to stretch on forever, but eventually, they found themselves back on a familiar, mundane road, far from the cursed highway. To this day, Tom and his friends refuse to speak of what they witnessed on that haunted highway. They warn others never to venture there after dark, for the malevolent spirits that dwell there hunger for the souls of the living. And once ensnared in its haunted embrace, escape becomes an impossible dream, a nightmarish journey without end. The haunted highway's secrets remain locked in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting travelers to cross its ominous path. Thank you for watching. We can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, take care, stay awesome, and don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment for more fantastic content. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming up. Bye for now.